Hi and welcome to the Bible channel. Are you interested in Bible prophecy? Are you concerned about the things that are going on in the world? Well, the Bible speaks of times like ours. The days are quickly flying and Christ will come again, are the words to a well-known hymn. But how much of that is reality? Is it possible that a Messiah could soon return to the earth? If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section and we'll do our best to get back to you.
But let's first of all look at that chapter which we've just had read to us. Look what it says in verses 1 and 2. But at the times and seasons, brethren, you have no need that I write unto you. Now, very clearly enlarged in the scriptures, and you know that perfectly. You see, the word there, times, means the duration of the period. We're around the year 6000. We know we're about the time of the coming of the Lord. We know the seasons, the characteristics of the period when he comes. Russia will be on the move, Israel in the land. We know that. We know it perfectly, accurately, precisely from the scriptures. So we are very blessed, my dear brethren and sisters. Therefore, let us not sleep, but let us watch and be sober. And by that word sober, he means disciplined in our behaviour one towards another and in our behaviour toward the truth, that we do not go the ways of the world. But now I want you particularly to look at verses 1 through to 5. Notice what it says, and I'm reading it now from the ESV. Now, concerning the times and seasons, brethren, you have no need to have anything written to you. For yourselves are fully aware that the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night. Does the thief phone you up and say he's going to break in tonight? Of course not. What do you hear of his coming? It's silent. While the people are saying there is peace and security, then sudden destruction will come upon them. So in other words, it's going to be a window of reasonable peace. And then things will go very gravely wrong. And then he goes on. As the labour pains come upon a pregnant woman. You remember the pain comes on and off just before there's little. Then suddenly there's the birth. And then he goes on. But you are not in darkness, brethren, for that day to surprise you as a thief. For you are the children of light. You've got the Bible on your knees. The children of the day. We are not of the night nor of darkness. So remember, 3 times he says, we come in a window of peace. When you might not expect it. Well, what are we being told? Trump's just won. Seems staggering that he won. And staggering numbers that he won. And he will come into power on January the 20th. Only about 50 odd days from now, he will take power. And he's already beginning to influence the things in the world scene. But what's his big aim? What's he saying? He's promising peace. Remember that quote? Could this be it? We cannot be dogmatic. But my goodness, brethren and sisters, we need to be prepared. Trump promises peace to end wars. After clinching a decisive majority in the US presidential race, Trump's going to focus on ending conflict. He did so previously, didn't he? Or tried to with the Abraham Alliance. I'm not going to start wars, he says. I'm going to stop wars. That's his big aim. And you know, he's an amazing and interesting person. Here's a little video. I won't keep you long with this.
I'm proud to be partnering with my very good friend, Lee Greenwood, who doesn't love his song, God Bless the USA, in connection with promoting the God Bless the USA Bible. This Bible is the King James Version and also includes our founding father documents, yes, the Constitution, which I'm fighting for every single day, very hard, to keep Americans protected. Also, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, and the Pledge of Allegiance are all part of this God bless the USA Bible. And it's just very important and very important to me. I want to have a lot of people have it. You have to have it for your heart, for your soul. Many of you have never read them and don't know the liberties and rights you have as Americans and how you are being threatened to lose those rights. It's happening all the time. It's a very sad thing that's going on in our country, but we're going to get it turned around. Religion and Christianity are the biggest things missing from this country, and I truly believe that we need to bring them back, and we have to bring them back fast. I think it's one of the biggest problems we have. That's why our country is going haywire. We've lost religion in our country. All Americans need a Bible in their home, and I have many. It's my favorite book. It's a lot of people's favorite book. This Bible is a reminder that the biggest thing we have to bring back America and to make America great again is our religion. Religion is so important. It's so missing, but it's going to come back, and it's going to come back strong. Just
that America could be a better place if it followed the principles of the truth. But Trump has repeatedly stated that within 24 hours, he will bring peace. Moscow demanded the West enter direct talks and on the end of war. Putin and Trump are prepared to come together, so they say. They've already done so before. There we can see it. And he plans to do so again. But now, let's come to the Bible and think where we are. What have we seen? There are the events that we should expect. Now, I'm not going through all of that tonight. But first of all, we've seen that take place. We've seen Russia enter into Syria, under the borders of Syria, about 2017. They've still got troops there. And no doubt they'll build more up later on. But what we want to look at particularly tonight is, early in the piece, Russia will ally with or take Europe. Okay? That's where we want to go first. And what is that going to mean? Well, as I'll show you a little later on, it may be that we're going to see an element of peace, but still more on that in a minute. So Russia will ally with or conquer Europe. Proof? Well, we know it off by heart almost, don't we? Ezekiel 38, Daniel 11, Daniel 2, and so on. The evidence is very substantial of what Russia will do, and it will certainly accomplish that. Look at Daniel 2 for a minute. We know it so well. Thou, O king, sawest and behold a great image, whose form thereof was terrible, and the image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, and his feet part of iron and clay. And of course, we know what that means. The image will stand. Russia, to some degree, will be allied with it. We don't know if Putin is going to be the dominant element. Probably Gog, Magog might well be, but we know that ultimately something's got to happen. Russia will then unite with all Europe, the 10 toes, and also Turkey and Persia, and then invade the Middle East. That's what we know. How did the year begin? Right at the very beginning. Here is the Washington Post saying, Russia has released plans, and they did. They released plans that they would be controlling somewhat Europe by 2025. And immediately, what did Europe do? They were terrified. And so in the Washington Post, they put out the plan of what they think Russia was going to do, to invade Europe. And they were terrified of what was going on. 10 papers had similar headlines to this, on the brink of World War III. The world is in terror. And that's what they were expecting. Conflict, first of all, in Israel, here in Europe, and then finally developing into the Middle East. That's what the paper said. Almost out of Ezekiel 38. And so what did the nations do? They responded. What did Europe do? It put 90,000 troops onto the northern border of Europe, facing Russia, well, facing Belarus and Russia behind it. They were terrified. America said, we'll send 10,000. They lied. They sent 20,000. They were all frightened to death. And so the situation is looking scary. Indeed, very scary indeed. brethren and sisters. And so there we can see what's going to happen. Europe is really panicking at the moment, panicking indeed, seeing what's going on. And we'll show further evidence of that in a minute. So what happened? Country after country went what they call right-wing, more pro-Russia in what they were voting. That didn't mean they got in dominantly, but it moved toward that end. Slovakia did. Come on. Holland did. Much of Europe did. Some of the areas there. And so we can see the swings taking place. What those right-wing wanted to do was negotiate with Putin. Not necessarily fight and lose all their children, so to speak, on the battlefront. And here's further evidence of that. European populace back Putin as they roll out their anti-Ukraine positions. Anti-Ukraine position. They don't want to go to war. And so a huge surge toward the right wing. Okay? And here are some of the countries where it happened. Staggering. Right across Europe, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, France, and so on. The swing was to make a deal with Russia. Try not to get conflict where we lose our soldiers, who could be our children. And so as the year began, soon as July the 1st came, the EU leadership has to be changed. It's a rotating new leadership. And this man took over, who is the president of Hungary. And he took over. He became the president of the EU. And guess what he did? He got in his plane. He didn't fly off to the EU, over whom he now controls. This is what he did. He went to Moscow. He went up to Moscow. As soon as he talked to Putin up there, he came back and talked to Kiev. Zelensky, in Kiev. And then where did he go from there? Right across to his ally in China. And then he came back to Europe. Here's the boss of Europe. The man who took over for the next 6 months over the EU. And then when he spoke to the EU, this is what he said. Orban said, what Europeans want is 3 things: peace, order, development. And they are getting war, migration, and stagnation. And he's saying, I want to do something different. I want to make sure it's going to be peace. And we know what the scriptures say, don't we? So, moving on now, a few months later, here we are, August. Remember, he took over July the 1st. Now in August, eyes popular earthquake in Germany. In Germany. It's going to take control of it, it looks like. They may not even see a single seat set in the parliament, but they are moving that way. Clearly. And it goes on. A rise of the far right. Now here we are in September. Isn't over yet. This right-wing party, which is like the Nazis, called to stop weapons going to Kiev, is also resonating strongly. Let's not send Kiev, let's not send Ukraine more weapons. It's costing us too much money. Costing us too much money. And so, here's Germany. Remember, Germany is supposed to be the strongest economy and probably the biggest power in Europe. And that's what they were saying. That was what they were saying. But now something intriguing happened. Europe began to see that Trump was going to get in. Before he won, the vote was swinging that way, and this man, Schulz, the head of Germany, could see that if he got in, America might not help Ukraine arm. So he immediately said, let's send $1 billion over. And the parliament blocked it. They said if you send that money over and then Trump doesn't, it's all gone, it's wasted. They might buy bullets and might last for another couple of months, but that's all. It's a waste of money. And so it got blocked. Germany is holding now a snap election. Because he lost that vote, they said, you've got to go to the polls. And he lost that, and there is to be a snap election now in Germany, February the 23rd. After the government collapsed over that issue, it's looking critical, absolutely critical out there. But now I want to follow the weaponry. The numbers up here might help you, what we're doing. Biden approves Ukraine's use of long-range missiles. So here's things going wrong. Trump is going to take over. Let's see if we can help Ukraine to win quickly against Russia. And they give approval for long-range missiles to be fired into Russia, and they are. And then Britain did the same. Then UK reportedly fires British Storm Shadow missiles into Russia. Ukraine has fired them then in. So here they've got very powerful weapons firing into Russia. They're hoping that Russia might collapse before Trump gets in. So what's happening now? Ukraine hits Russia with these special missiles, the ATACM missiles, for the first time on war's 1,000th day. They're having a big impact on Russia with USA-backed long-range missiles. That's what they stand for. Now in play, war fatigue and additional Russian attacks on the Ukraine energy system. The next few months could be pivotal. Look at these words. War fatigue for Europe and somewhat to America. What's going to happen? What did Russia do? Russia responded. It sent a warning. It sent ICBM, medium-range ICBMs. They go into orbit and they come in at 10 to 11 times the speed of sound. That's 3 kilometres a second. They're almost impossible to hit. Almost impossible to hit. And they plunged into Ukraine over here, and that's where they got. They didn't travel a big distance, but they can. That particular one can travel up to 5,500 kilometres. And the full ones can easily hit America. Easily hit America. And there's virtually no defence against it. So the situation is looking scary. So those ICBMs were launched and attacked. And when they did hit that township, they broke up and missiles, individual missiles, plunged very precisely and hit exactly what Russia had planned. They're trying to knock out the power source of Ukraine, their power stations, before winter comes, so they freeze. And now, Putin's long-range missiles headlines flag a grim new chapter. What we just looked at, wow, what's it telling us? Whatever species of bomb landed on the Ukraine city, the Russian dictator has succeeded in unleashing a wave of fear and terror in Europe. Why? Well, here's why. Putin vows more tests of nuclear-capable missiles. I'll put atom bombs in the front of those things, the ACBMs. You won't be able to stop them, and just wait. You have a look what's going to happen. This was supported or stated also by Medvedev. The Russians' new nuclear doctrine means NATO missiles fired against our country could be deemed an attack by the bloc on Russia. Russia could retaliate with weapons of mass destruction. That means World War III. And that's where the thing is hanging right now, except something changes. Putin's aide warns NATO to avoid nuclear war with Russia. You can stop the conflict now. What do you need to be doing? Medvedev, Russia's former president and current deputy chairman of the Russian Security Council, issued a stark warning to NATO, stating that the ongoing Ukraine conflict could be resolved without further loss of life if NATO ceases its support for Ukraine. In other words, it negotiates rather than attacks Russia. So, Zelensky says, I can see what's happening. I can see it. I hope we'll have peace by next year. He hopes the fighting will stop this coming year. Ukraine, more than anyone else in the world, wants a fair and speedy end to this war, he says. The war is destroying our country, taking the lives of our people, our children, our young people, our teenagers and such like on the battlefield. It's terrible, he's saying. We've got to change. But what about the rest of Europe? Why are European countries suddenly instructing their cities to prepare for war? Because they're terrified of what could happen. Something big is in the works. Countries in Europe seem to be really freaking out about what is ahead. Now look at the date. It's only a few days ago. If Russians become convinced that an all-out war with NATO is inevitable, they won't invade Europe, but use their nukes. This would be a full-blown nuclear war. So the leaders on both sides should be seeking to sit down at the negotiating table. Well, it's still possible to do so. Sweden, Finland, Norway and other countries are advising their people what to do if the war comes. So let's find a peaceful solution to the problem in Ukraine. Staggering. So the Ukrainian leaders fear war and are likely to ally with Russia or certainly discuss this with Russia and not go to war. And if that's so, that's what's going to happen. The image could stand. It could stand in a blink. Now, I want to warn you. We do not have to wait to see Russia move into the Middle East or Europe, Russia, Ezekiel 38 to happen. This is what Brother Thomas said. We have not to wait the advance of the Russian Gog against Constantinople. This will certainly come to pass, but it will all be after the appearing of Christ in Sinai. So what are we expecting? Well, in the next 10 years till Armageddon takes place, we expect Christ's return, judgment, time of fellowship. Then the march of the rainbow angel begins the saints. So we're expecting that before Armageddon. So where are we, brethren and sisters and young people? So after we are taken, then comes Armageddon sometime later. But what's going to drive Europe down into the Middle East? Well, here's one of them. What brings the Gogian Confederacy to invade Israel? The papacy. Since 1967, when Israel captured Judea and Samaria, the Catholic churches have adopted a policy which aims at forming a united front against Israel. And another thing that motivates them is anti-Semitism. Hatred for Israel. Look, the Bible says it. All thy lovers have forsaken thee, they seek thee not. And Ezekiel 38 says, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I'll bring thee forth and all thine army, all of them clothed with all sorts of armour. So they come down. They come down in their hatred of Israel. And goodness me, we've seen that, haven't we? It's happened in the streets of Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney. Just only a couple of months ago, there was going to be a protest, and it cost West Victoria $3 million to bring down enough policemen to marshal the streets above what they could get from New South Wales. They flew them down. Terrible things were happening. But here it is in London. Paris, Pakistan, of course, and Baghdad. There's a few pictures. So indeed, huge protests are taking place worldwide. Great anti-Semitic feelings, crazy feelings. And even in America, anti-Semitism, look at the rise in numbers. And then, over the last 2 years, it's increased by 3.5 times in just the USA. So things are looking very chronic. And that anti-Semitism is even driving them to say he's a war criminal, along with his ex-leader of the military. And this chap over here, who was probably killed in July, but it doesn't matter. And so there we can see some of the people. They say they're criminals. Now Netanyahu can probably only fly to America, who said they wouldn't do it. Almost every other country said, we'll put him in prison. Anti-Semitism drove that. And indeed, we're seeing that worldwide. Anti-Semitism swells in Europe amid the Gaza war. See, that's going to be the hook that brings them down. Combating anti-Semitism or anti-Jewish hate across Europe. 76% of the Jews are scared, they're worried over what's going on. It's terrible. And look, the result has been that huge numbers have come into the Middle East while the fighting is going on. In spite of the conflict, 31,000 Jews have immigrated to Israel since September the 23rd, September 2023, October the 7th. From more than 100 countries, despite the ongoing war in Gaza. They're terrified of what they can see. And they can see it, it'll be safer, they say, in Israel. Staggering. But now let's look at the Middle East. We want to look at Israel, our second main subject. The conflict due to Gaza, Lebanon and Iran. What's going on there? Well, the scriptures tell us that Tyre and Zidon, that's the area of Lebanon, southern Lebanon, south of the Litani River, and the coast of Palestine, that's Gaza, will try and reconcile themselves ultimately with Israel. Persia will be involved, allied to Russia. And so what are we seeing? Looking at our picture, Israel must dwell confidently in the land to result in that event. How will that happen? Well, these enemies, here they are, Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, Iran. There they are listed, and you can see where they are, particularly on that map. They're all backed by Iran. Iran's sending them money, weapons, men, huge numbers, staggering amount of equipment. So now let's look at the Gaza Strip, number one. What's gone on there? Well, let's come back a little. There's October the 7th. From October the 7th, 2023, over a year ago, there has been conflict in the Middle East over this tiny little stretch of land, the Gaza Strip. We remember what took place. I don't need to go into any detail of that. You know it probably off by heart of what took place. Huge numbers of tunnels. You think of it, they weren't a rich country. Where did the money come? Where did the means to do it? From Iran. And they tell us also from Russia. And so into that area had come, when there was peace there, a lot of money, enlisting the Hamas, causing them to hate Israel and to prepare for a conflict. But Israel, when she took control of it, what did she say? She said, listen, we'll first of all try and clear the northern part. All you normal people go south. See their care? See their care? So they opened evacuation areas and helped people to get south. And now they've said to the south, come to the north. And then they're going south again. They're moving people all over the place so they can attack the underground Hamas. Problems are happening with food supplies. Come on. whoops, what's gone on? Oh, well, I did it finally. I pressed the button twice. The Gaza humanitarian crisis to deepen as aid's frozen. They're in trouble. They can see difficulties coming to them in Gaza, the Hamas, the Gazans. They're really in trouble. What can happen? They want things to be lifted too. The halt threatens the Gazans, 2.2 million Palestinians, at a point when food shortages and lack of shelter and medical services are becoming more and more severe by the day. And so they're coming under pressure. Look at what happened to Gaza. Oops, I'm not quite sure why it's taking so long. Seems to be charged, all right. All right. Israel replied after the Gaza war, and look at what's happened to the same area in Gaza. And now, 6,000 missiles replied in a week after October 7, and now over 175,000 buildings have been damaged or destroyed, and still 101 hostages are still held by the Hamas. What's going to happen? Well, Israel's been extremely successful after assaults. Here's the leader of the Hamas. You can hardly see him there, but he got bopped off. Hamas chief Sinwar, I like his name. He sins because he causes war. Sin war. Okay, he's dead. The Israeli defense chief has called on Hamas to surrender after the death of the master terrorist Sinwar, the architect of the October 7 massacre, in the severest blow yet to the militant group. So they're suffering terribly on every hand. Food, their people, their buildings, and the Hamas are. Israel says they've got the bulk of the Hamas so far. But now, here's the news today, this morning on the radio or on the web. The Australian newspaper said, Biden said the United States, Turkey, Egypt, Qatar and Israel would make another push in coming days for a ceasefire in Gaza, where Israel is still at war with the Hamas following October the 7 attack in Israel. Washington will always also push for a long, hoped-for deal to normalise relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia. So the Americans and much of the Arab world, the moderate Arab world, are agreeing that they will push like mad on the Hamas and the Gazans. And so the situation looks like it could be peaceful there too in just a short time. But now let's come to Lebanon. Here's the area we want to particularly look at. That under that yellow line is the area which is the buffer zone, I believe, which is much of it south of the Litani River. But let's look further at that now. What happened up there? Amazing Israeli events. Pages. You probably heard about these little cell phones that they used to be held by doctors and nurses so they could talk to people in hospitals. Israel arranged for them to be built about 10 years before, and they were built in Hungary, which is pro-Russian, pro-Iranian. And so the Iranians bought it from them and brought them over there, hundreds of them, thousands of them, and gave it to their Hezbollah leaders, Hezbollah men, so that if the cell phones get logged into, and Israel did, so they said, use your pager. And then, of course, when this war began, they blew up. And then they said, oh, well, let's go over to walkie-talkies. A little bit more dangerous up here. And the consequence was 12 people died from the pages, 14 from the walkie-talkies that blew up, and many, many were injured. Look at it. Staggering. Staggering what Israel accomplished. And they have continued to do so. Look at this. Here's the leadership of the Hamas, of the Hezbollah, the leadership structure of the Hezbollah. They got bopped off one by one by one. Well, some of them at the same time, I might add. And then finally, a little while ago, he got bopped off too. The top leader got taken out. Staggering. What does it mean? Now, of course, Sinai from the Gaza Strip went. And now, Israel striked on Beirut. Look at the date, only a few days ago. And kills that Hezbollah media chief. This man controlled what they were saying, and also, I understand, controlling the missiles being fired when they should be fired and such like. The Hezbollah chief, another one, killed. How many will survive? I doubt. So, what's Hezbollah saying? Here we are. Look at the date. Only a few days ago. Only a few days ago. Hezbollah leader signals ceasefire. We're ready for it. We've lost too many. I'm sure that what they're saying is, give us a breather and we'll attack Israel again later, but much later. Possibly when Russia comes down. More on that in a minute. Hezbollah leader said Wednesday that the group had reviewed and provided feedback on a US drafted ceasefire proposal to end its year-long conflict within Israel, signaling a conditional approval. We've had enough. I think we better stop. A rational move. Probably the first one they've ever made. So, there's the situation that's taking place. Ceasefire readiness. And now, also in Israel. Now, Lapid is the opposition leader to Netanyahu. Israel's opposition leader, Lapid, presents wide-reaching peace initiative. Look at the date. Only a few days ago, starting with truces in Gaza and Lebanon. Truce, hostage release, will be accompanied by a multinational Riyadh-based commission on the Strip's governance. So things will be changed, he says. That's what we need to see happening. It's amazing. Now, Lebanon says it's ready to improve the UN, implement the UN resolution. Now, that's going back a little, about 4 weeks ago. We affirm our agreement and pledge to implement a ceasefire immediately with Israel. That's what the leader of Lebanon said, not the leader of the Hezbollah. They've come to their senses a little, as I showed you before. But already before that, he said this, but I want you to hear what he said. We affirm our agreement and pledge to implement a ceasefire immediately with Israel. He said that Lebanon is ready to send its army to the southern region with the UN peacekeepers. Israel's foreign minister said Tel Aviv will only accept a ceasefire in Lebanon when the Hezbollah is pushed away from the border to the north of the Litani River and disarmed. So there's what the situation was. That's how one viewed it, one stated it, about 3 weeks ago. But now, where are we now? Here we are. Well, what's the date today? Says the 27th, yesterday. Israel's Lebanon peace deal possible within hours. Israel cabinet approve a ceasefire deal with Lebanon. The signs of a diplomatic breakthrough were accompanied by heavy airstrikes on Beirut's Hezbollah-controlled southern suburbs. Here's Israel booing them, and they're saying, okay, well, I think we've had enough, we'll stop. Israel would maintain the ability to strike southern Lebanon under any agreement if the Hezbollah stay there. The proposal would entertain an Israel withdrawal from South Lebanon and regular Lebanese army troops deployed in the border region within 60 days. Now, that was only yesterday. The peace deal was commenced and signed 1 o'clock in our time today. Today. And so what was it? Let's look at it a little bit more carefully. This is my summary. Fighting will stop for the next 60 days at least. Israel will be allowed to attack if the Hezbollah continues to act. The Hezbollah must leave southern Lebanon, south of the Litani River, Tyre and Zidon area. Israel will then remove its troops from southern Lebanon. The normal Lebanese troops will be allowed to come into that area to keep the Hezbollah, the Hezbollah out. So that was the deal that was struck at 1 o'clock today, same time, our time, in Israel and Lebanon. Staggering, isn't it? What did Brother Thomas say? He said the Tarshish ally will take the coasts of Palestine, Tyre and Zidon. Where's Tyre and Zidon? South of the Litani River. He seems to be expecting, and I'm not sure he's right, but he seems to be accepting that a Tarshish block will come into that area and bring the peace. Basing it on Joel chapter 3. What have you to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coasts of Palestine? Will you render me a recompense? And Brother Thomas adds these words. The power that comes into possession of Tyre and Zidon at the coast of Palestine, Joel chapter 3 verse 4, is the great latter-day antagonist of Gog, Britain, Tarshish block, in the time of the end. And it does look like that may have to happen to keep the peace. But now, let's come to Iran, our last area we want to look at. Well, brothers and sisters, Iran is certainly going to be allied with Russia. Ezekiel 38 demands it. Persia, here it is. And what's been happening there? Well, look at this date, October, not long ago. The Russian Prime Minister came down and saw the Iranian Prime Minister. Iran vows to enhance cooperation with Russia. For his part, the Russian Prime Minister expressed his country's willingness to increase interaction with Iran, especially in energy, industry, transportation, agriculture, health, and so on, and military. That wasn't added diplomatic, but that's really what there is. And so we expect Russia to be involved. Then, about 3 weeks ago, over 100 planes took off from Israel and bombed Iran in the night. 100 planes. You'd see them on your radar. Iran never saw them on their radar. Israel had some mechanism that blocked it. And they blew up missile bases, missile factories, areas where they would load missiles. And now they've added an area where they could assemble nuclear weapons. They did not touch the nuclear plants and the oil facilities because America asked them not to. So there they are. They flew 2,000 kilometres. Not one was lost. They were up to 3 hours over the top of Iran, blowing up and bombing things. A big message to Iran. You continue to attack us and look out. Look out. Look out what we could do to you. So, Netanyahu aspires peace with Arab countries after Iran's strike. Netanyahu has said, Israel destroyed Iran's industrial factories of death in its strikes over the weekend, but added the remaining commitment to the Abraham Accord. We'll honour it if they do. Otherwise, look out. We could utterly blitz you, Iran. Now, how does Iran view things? Israel, a major threat to Iran. Now, I'm picking up articles back a little while. Iran hit Iranian military facilities, but was not seen on their radar. So a big warning. Attack us, look out. We'll just come in and blitz you. Israel even earlier that other event, hit the Iranian banking infrastructure. They didn't fly planes in, they just used their computer, disintegrated it for a number of days. just closed down. Nobody could go to the bank and get any money. Israel just closed it down. The Ayatollah was advised that their houses are not ready for war. In Israel, they have a secure room. They have underground shelters. Iran has none of them. The Prime Minister warned the Ayatollah, if you fight, you're going to lose Iranians all over the place because Israel can blitz you. And Russia said they'd come down later to fight with Iran. And I suggest to you, shite next door to Iran, I suggest to you that that's Armageddon. So we can see the situation that's developing. Now, I'm going into something a little quirky. You might think I'm weird, but I just want you to think. Christ's return could be at any moment. What could happen to us? How could we go to Sinai? Look at this. There's massive auroras. We saw some, if you were lucky enough, about a month ago down along the coast of Adelaide. Whoops. Let's come back. I don't know, this silly thing. It's got its own way at the moment. There it is. But they're also seen over in Christchurch, New Zealand, only a day or two ago. Now, I want you to understand that they are deadly, what they can do. It's absolutely deadly what they can accomplish. You know, light comes from the sun in 8 minutes and 20 seconds. Comes all the way at the speed of light. But charged particles come, those same charged particles, so when the sun has a big indigestion and a burp and it sends out flames, the ions come at a huge speed. 1/3 of the speed of light, they come in 3 days and 20 hours. So we get about 3 days warning. Now, they struck Canada. And this is what happened to the power plant there. That's what it ended up looking like. You can go on the web and see pictures of it. It just struck the edge of the earth and got Canada. If it went right across, it would knock out the web totally, everywhere. The voltage in Canada went from 120, they don't have 240, 120 to 30,000 in a fraction of a second. It would completely blow out our internet. Nobody would know where we are. We could go and there'd be absolute mayhem around, brethren and sisters. It's utterly chaotic. And I was moved to say something because Radio New Zealand has taken this on board. They're not listening to me, I might add. But they have determined that they will switch New Zealand off if they see a flare coming for 36 hours. They said if we don't, it will cost us at least $1 billion. If it hits USA, it will cost $27 billion. The huge internet destruction, power destruction, and so off that will take place. So they said we're prepared, if we see it coming, to switch down for 36 hours. I don't think Australia will. We probably don't think quite like that, but there we are. That was in the paper. Look at the date, 2 days ago. Staggering, isn't it? So it would be amazing what would happen. The university over there has been advising them to do so. Well, let's come back to where we were, where we began. We're at a stage where we could be taken in a flash, couldn't we? And nobody know where we are. God could achieve it through a solar flare. But we're seeing potential peace in Gaza, potential peace in the area of the Hezbollah to the south of Lebanon. We're seeing possible peace in Iran. We're seeing possible peace in Europe where they might talk rather than go fight. So what's the message? There's that quote where we began. It comes as a thief in a time of peace. As labour pains come upon a pregnant woman. So we need to be ready, brethren and sisters. Is it now? I can't tell you. But we know certainly the Lord will come. And we ought therefore to be truly ready. People of prayer, studying the Bible, coming to the meetings every moment, doing everything we could do to walk in the way of the truth, brethren and sisters, and prepare ourselves for Christ's return. Well, by way of conclusion, Think of where we're going with our readings in a few days' time. Revelation. Revelation warns us too. 7 times it warns us, I will come unto thee quickly or suddenly. I will come unto thee suddenly. I will come suddenly. I will come suddenly. I will come suddenly. I will come suddenly. It will happen. We need to be prepared. So what are we doing? What are you doing? What am I doing? And that knowing that the time, that it's now high time to awake out of sleep. For now is our salvation nearer than when we believed. When we came and were baptized or came to our Sunday school classes and such like, believing in the truth. Let's respond, brethren and sisters. Let's respond to that. We don't know how long it's going to be, but we know in the mercy of God that God probably has other people in mind He wants baptized, that they will happen. But suddenly it will happen. And He will come. The Lord will come. The days are virtually here now. So let's be prepared. Thank you.
Don't forget to hit like, subscribe and share the video if you thought it was interesting. See you next time, God willing.